Hello, everyone. Welcome to our program Consciousness in Evolution, a project from Reaprendência International, whose objective is to debate essential themes of Conscientiology. As some of you know, Reaprendência is a conscientiocentric institution dedicated to re-education and personal growth. We also bring researchers and instructors to debate with us themes such as self-re-education, parapsychism development, out-of-body experience, bioenergies, multiple lives, and other subjects related to self-evolution. So in today's webinar, our guest is Rodrigo Marchioli from ACIP International. He is going to talk about what is consciousness, what is this concept about people. For me, is a very interesting question, very deep, and that demands a lot of reflections and debate. So, is consciousness a physical object, a psychological element, the mind itself, or a set of its attributes? Conscientiology approach, however, calls and allows for a more radical understanding of consciousness. And that's what we are going to talk about in this webinar. So feel free to send us any questions, okay? And I'm going to introduce our lecturer to you. Welcome, Rodrigo. Hello.
Thank you, Eliane. Hello, good afternoon to all our spectators that are here, giving us their attention. Thank you for the invitation also. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good. Thank you, Rodrigo. And I'm going to read your resume, your mini biography. Rodrigo Marchioli is a lawyer and college professor. He is also a PhD candidate at University of São Paulo School of Law. He is a Conscientiology instructor since 2013 and since then has independently researched the phenomena of cosmo-consciousness, which he believes he has experienced. He is author of courses, lectures, and articles on the subject, having published and contributed in particular to Consciência magazine and the Encyclopedia of Conscientiology. Very good. So, welcome, Rodrigo. I will add the transparencies here or the PowerPoint, and you can start at any time.
Okay, thank you, Eliane, once again. It's a real pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about this topic, which is very important to me because, as you said in my CV or my bio, I study cosmo consciousness, and this experience shows us or give us a glimpse of what consciousness is. So this is a very important topic to me, and have this deep connection with cosmo consciousness. I will talk a little bit about cosmo consciousness in the end, and I will have the opportunity to relate the two matters here. And I think my presentation is not on the screen.
Okay, let's go. Let's just a second.
Okay, no problem.
Here it is.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we are talking today about what is consciousness or what consciousness is, and have this deep connection with cosmic consciousness, as I was saying, but I will not go so deep in this topic or this phenomena regarding cosmic consciousness. I will try to answer this question from the conscientiology perspective. So without further ado, I will move on, because there are a lot of things that we can talk about this topic today. So I don't have much time to spend here. I just have 1 hour, and now it's 3:06 p.m. and I have to hurry up a little bit. So first of all, I think it's very important to also say and express something about the principle of this belief, because uh, it's a very complex subject that we are having here, and it's very important to move from this principle of disbelief. You should not believe what I am saying here. Don't believe in anything, not even what you hear in this webinar. You should experiment. Try to experiment what I am telling you about consciousness is. Have your own experience about that, and then we can. I think we have more instruments to talk a little bit better about consciousness. So very important to highlight this principle here. So uh, having this in view, I will pass my presentation through this six topics, main topics here, which uh, the first one is the theoretical overview, because we have many theories that try to explain what consciousness is, and I will try to include conscientiology approach in this theoretical overview, because I am saying in this overview that there are 19 theories, but from like we consider conventional science, let's say, like this, or conventional philosophy. And I will try to include the conscientiological point of view in this 19 theoretical approach that we face in the, as we say, in conventional science. So the second topic is the conscientiological approach. The third one is the definitions of consciousness that in conscientiology we can find, mainly from the proposer of conscientiology, which is Professor Valdo Vieira. And I will pinpoint some of the definitions, or the main definitions that Professor Vieira brought us in his many works that he published during his life. Uh, from these definitions, I will point out some fundamental topics of some fundamental questions in order to try to develop a way, a path to actually answer the question what consciousness is, because in conscientiology we find many different definitions proposed by Professor Valdo, and I think it's important to ask some questions to see which of the definitions are the best ones. And from this point, I would try to propose a new category, because uh, these main definitions that we find in conscientiology, they do not fit in this theoretical overview, and do not fit in the conventional approach about consciousness. So I think we need a new category to explain what consciousness is from the conscientiological perspective. And uh, to end my presentation, I will ask also some questions to do some reflections about the theme. So yeah, uh, this theoretical overview is based on this booklet from the last Congress that was held in Italy, 2023, this year in May. And I had the opportunity to participate with a poster presentation in this event. And after the event, it was published this booklet that the image of the booklet is here. The front page of the booklet is here. So in this booklet, which was organized by the organizers of the event, but mainly from Stuart Hameroff, which is the main organizer of the event. Let's say like this, the first one that was the person that was from the first event, was participate from the first opportunity of this event. He proposed this event to happen, the science of consciousness. And in this booklet, we find 19 theories, which I will not be able to explain each one of them because I would need, I don't know how many hours to do that. But yeah, I think that we can have a overview actually about this theoretical approach that we face about consciousness around the world. And I will not be able to explain because I don't have time to do it, but it would be really good to see each of these theoretical approaches that try to explain what consciousness is. But considering that I do not have time to explain each one of them, I summarized the 19 approaches or theories that we encounter uh, around the world with many theoretical researchers and philosophers and experimental researchers also in conventional science. I tried to summarize then the 19 in 3 lines, uh, which will try to explain what consciousness is, or in what, let's say, what paradigm consciousness can be explained. So, in this attempt to summarize these 19 approaches, I put here 3 lines, 3 main lines, which is dualism, monism, and panpsychism slash panprotopsychism, which will deal with different approaches regarding matter and mind. So, in dualism, uh, the traditional dualism, which is the Cartesian dualism, will say that there are 2 instances of reality, which uh, one is the physical reality, which is the matter reality, and the other one is the reality of the mind. And also in dualism, there is a new approach. It's a recent approach proposed by David Chalmers, which would say that reality is a new naturalistic dualism, which is matter has 2 natures. There's no separate reality of the mind, where there's no physical reality and mental reality. The supposed mental reality is also a physical reality, but in another aspect. So uh, monism also, it's another line that will try to explain reality and also consciousness in this kind of view. And there will be 3 lines here, 3 subdivisions in monism, which the first one is physicalism or materialism, which I think we all know about that, which will try to say that, that there is only the physical reality, there is only matter, there is no mind reality or something else beyond matter or the physical reality. And the main theories that we found here, the main of the 19 theories that we find here, especially the mind brain identity theory, which is the 11th one here, is the is a monism, is a attempt to explain consciousness through a monism line, a monistic line, and specifically a physicalist materialist theory. Uh, and on the other hand, idealism will say it's another form of monism, but will say that the reality is only mental. There is actually no physical reality. There's only ideas or the mind, the reality of the mind. There's no physical reality. There is the dual aspect theory, which will try to say that there is only the physical reality, but it expresses itself in two aspects of the same nature. So uh, it's another approach. It's a monistic way, but a different approach. And the neutral monism, which will say, I think that the neutral monism is the more interesting for us, because it will say the ultimate reality is not matter nor mind. It's something neutral, something different. And I think there is some potential here to develop some approach or some interaction between the conscientiology approach, but I'll not do that because we'll not have time to do it. And just to finish here, Eliane, I don't know if we have questions, but the panpsychism or panprotopsychism, which is uh, a subdivision of the panpsychism, will say that everything is both mental and physical. There's these two realities that are intertwined between themselves. So I'll not go deep anymore in that, but I think we have questions, Eliane.
No, it's my question because
Yeah.
I was reading here the your PowerPoint, and I thought about that. The neutral monism is more near. It looks like to be nearer of the conception of consciousness according to conscientiology, because
Yes.
consciousness is not matter, is something else.
Yes.
Because as we know in conscientiology, there is only matter, and that is energy, and the consciousness,
Yes.
something different. So it looks like the neutral monism. Okay.
Yes. 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 This is the one that have more potential, because the main argument that neutral monism utilizes to defend its proposal, it's because how do you explain the interaction between matter and mind if it does not have a neutral substance between them? This is an argument to try to explain how mind or consciousness interacts with matter and the physical reality. They try to explain this interaction by saying that there is a neutral reality between them that connects both of them.
Both. Mm-hmm. Very
Yes.
good. Yes,
So
it's a very philosophical question and matter to discuss, but I think it's worth trying to understand these views, because they, in a way, we are going to propose a a different view, totally different from
yes,
this 19.
yes, it's important to know, because the first point we would like to know is conscientiology one of them? Does conscientiology fits, or its framework can fit in one of them? And I don't think so. I think conscientiology is something different.
Very
And
good.
because conscientiology proposes that consciousness is not something organic or physical or something psychological or something psycho-organic, which is the interaction between these two elements. I think conscientiology, and now this is my point of view here. I think conscientiology proposes that consciousness is something totally different from the organic or physical or the psychological reality. It's something beyond that. So it does not fit quite properly in any of these lines or these theories. And I think we should question ourselves in what perspective can we understand consciousness from the conscientiological perspective. So this is the question here. and then we'll try to answer this question
Very good.
and the next slides. So, amid these 19 theories, want to include one more because, as we already said, conscientiology does not, or apparently does not fit in anyone. And so there would be a 20th theory here, and we'll try to explain why the conscientiological theory is new, is different, and does not cannot be confounded with this or confused with these 19 theories, and this will lead us to a different definition about consciousness. I think this is the main point here. The most important point here is that when we realize that conscientiology does not fit in any of these 19 theories or these three lines, as I summarized the 19 theories, that will lead us to a different definition of consciousness. This is the main point here, and I will try to explain that why this is totally new and what is the conclusion that we bring from this new perspective that conscientiology tried to propose to us. So, what is totally different from the conscientiological perspective is that conscientiology is an attempt to explain what consciousness is based on the study of personal experiences of power phenomena, mainly out of body experience, also known as conscious projections or lucid projections. So, any of these theories consider this self experiment of out of body experience or conscious projection. So, when we consider this experience as something real, as something that actually happens to us or can happen to us at some point of our life, it changes completely the perspective that we have about ourselves. And considering that we consider ourselves as consciousness, uh, it makes everything different because when we consider that we are not our physical body and we are not our mind or something psychological from our mind or from the structure of our mind, it changes completely from the other perspectives or the other theories that we said. So the out of body experience, the conscious projection or the lucid projection, not only in the aspect of the psychosoma projection, but in the mental soma projection, which is a more sophisticated and a more complex and a more, let's say, deep experience that we can have, which is the cosmo consciousness, as we said in the beginning. It can reveal reality of the consciousness, which is totally different from the other perspectives, and this is what we would try to explain here. What are the differences that we have from the other theories, and what is totally uh, unique in the conscientiology approach. So, uh, Professor Valdo Vieira, he gave us a lot of definitions about consciousness, but I think neither of them can. They have some connections between them, but they are very unique. They are very singular, individual. Let's say they're very different from the one and each other. They have very strong differences between them. So Professor Valdo gave us 5 definitions I found out in his publications, and I will try to present here. So these 5 definitions, they will say that the first one, that consciousness is equal to our memory or to our hollow memory. The second one will say that consciousness is our holosoma, which is the set of vehicles that consciousness can manifest from. So consciousness have many vehicles of manifestation. The one most known vehicle is our physical body, our soma, and we can manifest ourselves from our soma. But once we consider the out of body experience or the conscious projection, lucid projection, we realize that consciousness have other vehicles of manifestation. And from this perspective, we consider the existence of holosoma. And Professor Valdo at one point said that consciousness is the holosoma. Uh, in the other point, or in other publication, Professor Valdo said consciousness is the parabrain, and I will try to explain what this is. In another one, Professor Valdo said the consciousness is the same as the I, the self, the ego, or something related to an intelligent principle. And in the end, I will try to explain the definition, or the, it's not actually a direct definition, it's a definition by exclusion, which would say that consciousness is something different from the energy, or something which does not is not correlated with energy or matter. We could say something like this. So uh, it's quite common, we see in the conscientiological community, let's say, that we say that consciousness is the memory itself. Why Professor Valdo said that? Because basically, if we remove the memory from the consciousness, what what remains? It would remain possibly nothing. So any information, any identity, and any possibility of life, let's say, like this. So, and at some point, Professor Valdo said that consciousness is the memory itself. So the attribute of memory, or hollow memory, as we say in conscientiology, hollow memory would be the set of all of our memories of all of our lives and all of our experiences that we had in our trajectory, evolutionary trajectory of the consciousness. So we had many experiences, and we would register these experiences in our hollow memory, and that would be registered there, and that sum of memories would be us in the final examination of this matter. So Professor Wald would say that consciousness would be also the memory because of these arguments that I said. In the other, in another point, Professor Wald would say that conscientiology is the science that studies the entire consciousness with all its bodies, existences, experiences, times, and places of life in an integral, projective, and self conscious approach in relation to the various existential dimensions. So, when Professor Valdo considered consciousness in its entirety, he was saying that consciousness is the holosoma. So this is a picture that would represent our holosoma. So there is the soma, which is our physical body, and ergosoma, our energetic body, our psychosoma, which is our emotional body, and which appears in a first opportunity when we are projected in an extra physical reality, and the mental soma, which is a more deep reality in the extra physical world. So this set of bodies would be, we could consider that this integrity of bodies would be the consciousness. Eliane?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, I brought this question because what you're talking about made me think that the consciousness, we are our hollow memory, and we are
Mhm.
all the previous experiences of past lives. And what do you think? I will read the question. Can we say that all previous experiences of past lives of a consciousness delineates their evolutionary level? What do you think about evolutionary level?
Yes.
Can you relate with all memory?
Yes, yes. So, previous experiences of past lives of a consciousness can delineate this evolutionary level, but I think it's not a mandatory consequence of that can show us its actually evolutionary level, because there are many consciousness that have a lot of experiences from past lives, but they did not qualify that experiences in something evolutionary. So the outcome of this is not uh, something evolutionary for them. They didn't have any upgrade in an evolutionary aspect. So it's not a mandatory consequence. It's not something which is necessary. Many experiences that does not is not the same as evolutionary, a high evolutionary level.
I
So
understand. Yes,
yes,
because for example, if we have a leader that is very experienced, a leader, political leader, that's something very common that we have nowadays. And but they are bellic leaders. They
yes,
they're not really fraternal universalists, and
yes,
well,
yes. They are not really concerned about evolution, let's say.
yes, and they might, some of them might have had previous lives as leaders. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a leader today, a political leader with all known all over the world. That's also a hypothesis. I'm just thinking about everything,
Yes,
all these possibilities, because this is something that fits very much in Conscientiology's approach, that we are what we have lived in previous lives, what we have experienced, although we have our free will to do whatever we want
yes,
and to have qualified intention or not,
yes,
although
yes.
it all
But
depends on the consciousness.
yeah, but coming back to the attempt to define what consciousness is, and taking this line that you said, you already said now, I would try to um, refuse the proposal that consciousness is the hollow memory, because yes, definitely the memory is very important, is a very important aspect of consciousness, but I think consciousness is more than that, because obviously if we remove the memories of the consciousness will not have, let's say, the instruments or the tools to express itself. But the memory only constructs or builds up its identity, and the identity of the consciousness is not the consciousness itself. So I would say that consciousness is not its hollow memory, as it's not also its hollow soma, because uh, the means of manifestation of the consciousness does not mean that consciousness is that way that consciousness manifests itself. So identity and means of manifestation does not cannot be confused with the consciousness itself. So
Okay.
it's very important aspects in terms of evolution of the consciousness, as you questioned me, but it's not a fundamental aspect of the characterization of consciousness. Okay?
Okay, very good. Let's move. I know you have some very interesting slides
Yes.
to show us.
Okay, thank you. So there is another approach by Professor Valdo, which would say that consciousness is our parabrain. The parabrain. So he said that the parabrain is the nucleus of the personal Holocene, that is consciousness, which is or that is consciousness is the parabrain. So the nucleus of our personal Holocene, I could say in another words, that is the synthesis of our emotions, thoughts, and energies. So our most deep reality of of the set of our emotions, thoughts, and energies would would reside in the parabrain, and that would be us. That would be the consciousness. So this is the proposal, and this was actually one of the last approaches of Professor Valdo, which he published in the Lexicon of Orthopensatas. And the page is here. It was in 2014, and I think that there are a lot of space, a lot of field to discussion about this, because this is a very interesting definition that he gave us. So the other one, I think it's very common and a very well-known definition of consciousness that he also said, which is the consciousness is me, is you. It's also everyone in human life, near or far, and all self-conscious conscious beings in dimensions beyond human life. Consciousness is our greatest reality, or us, that are more than energy and matter. So if I'm not mistaken, this definition could be founded in the book Our Evolution, uh, also from Professor Valdo. And yeah, I think there is not much to say here, because this is very self-evident what he's trying to say. But I think we could relate consciousness with the self-conscious experience, the experience of seeing yourself, or the self-research process, let's say. And I think this picture in the presentation tries to resemble this, what this definition tries to bring to us. So the last one, I think this is the one which I like the most, which consciousness is different from energy. This is the one that I think that have most potential to explain what consciousness is, and it does not try to explain consciousness directly. It tries to explain consciousness by what consciousness is not. So consciousness is not the energy. Consciousness is something else. So the cosmos is made up of two fundamental realities, consciousness and energy, or in other words, thought scene and nature. So this is a very interesting um starting point to discuss what consciousness is, and I think is the one that have the most potential to explain consciousness. And I will try to explain that from the next slides. So I think there are two problematic conclusions that we can take from the presentation that I just did. The first one is that conscientiology lacks a precise definition regarding consciousness, because we have actually five definitions, but it does not say actually what consciousness is. It's saying some kind of attribute of consciousness, like memory or hollow memory or the parabrain, which would be a structure from which consciousness manifests itself. Also, the holosoma definition, because consciousness is not actually its vehicles, it's something else that is behind the vehicles, or it's behind the parabrain or the memory, or the I, the identity, which would be the fourth definition that I said before. I think consciousness is something beyond that. It's not actually that things. Consciousness uses the memory, the holosoma, its identity, um, and all the other structures as parabrain to manifest itself. But it's not that in itself, it's something else. And obviously, consciousness or conscientiology does not fit in any of the theoretical framework of the 19 theories mentioned. So I think a new perspective is needed here. So in order to do that, I think we should ask some questions. And if you have any questions, please make them, because our time is
Well,
almost finishing.
Rodrigo, I
Yes.
have a question. That is my question, because you were talking about those theories and what the consciousness isn't, right?
Yes.
You were saying
Yes.
consciousness is not the holosoma, is not the parabrain, is not the holo memory. But how about our thoughts and ideas? Because if we consider the evolutionary scale of
Mm-hmm.
the consciousness proposed by Conscientiology, when we are a free consciousness, we will
Yes.
manifest ourselves by our ideas, by our who we are, our energies that are brought by our ideas. I know that the
Mm-hmm.
free consciousness for me doesn't seem one person, but it's something united, as if it was a permanent um, experience of cosmovision. It's something united with the cosmos. That's
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is not. It's a broader subject that we should talk in other occasion. But just to go straight to my doubt, isn't the consciousness their thoughts?
A consciousness would be the thought itself,
Thoughts,
a thought.
thoughts, their thoughts.
But these thoughts, they appear and disappear. They
No,
exist.
the consciousness is the one who produces the thoughts,
Yes,
right?
this is what I'm saying.
The consciousness produces their thoughts, okay,
Yes,
all
the
the time.
consciousness cannot be the thought scene. The consciousness produces it. Yes, this is the.
But in a if we consider that in the evolutionary scale, someday we will not have this holosoma anymore.
Yes. Yeah, but
Wouldn't be the
consciousness will.
holocene.
Yeah, I cannot make this such a exploratory such exploration about what will happen when we are free consciousness. But um, what can I say? Even by logic, is that consciousness cannot be something that exists at one time and then extinguishes in another.
Yeah, that would
Consciousness is
be okay.
something permanent.
It's more
It's
permanent. Okay.
yes, it's something
It's the
permanent.
one who manages the toxins.
Yes, the one which produces it. It's
Okay.
the thousins, and even in a very evolutionary level, very high evolutionary level, I think it would not change.
Okay.
Consciousness would not become a thousine at some point. I do not think that
A
it would be the case.
set of, yeah, neither a holotocene. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So
then
thank you
I
again.
got it. That's my crazy and wow reflection. Okay.
Yes. No, but
Thanks,
great
Rodrigo.
question. I think
I
it
think
helps me to think also about the points that I'm bringing here.
the condition. Very good.
Yes.
Let's go a bit further.
Yeah. Okay. So uh, to try to put conscientiology in a new framework, because we found out that conscientiology does not fit in any of the frameworks presented, and we need a clear definition about consciousness. We should ask some basic questions or some fundamental questions. And the first one would be uh, some basic one: is consciousness a physical or organic object? From the conscientiological perspective, we could consider consciousness as something physical or organic. Well, I think the answer here is quite clear, because I don't think so. Because when we start from the point that there is reality beyond the physical body, which we can realize and perceive from the out of body experience, we can easily answer the first question with no. And the second one would be: is consciousness a psychological object? Like, as we are talking previously with Eliane, I would say that a thought is a psychological object. But there are many others that we would say, like, I could say, like, a memory is a psychological object. um, an object perceived, which is para percept, or a percept, is also a psychological object. Imago, which is an object that comes from our imagination, is also a psychological object. So consciousness is not any of these things that I said. Is not a product of the imagination, of perception, of the memory, any of that. And also, kind of obviously, consciousness is not the mind, not the mind, because consciousness is not what processes all these things, is not the structure that processes all these psychological aspects and objects. Consciousness is something which is beyond that. So I will not have the time to go a little more deeper into these questions, but I have, let's say, sub questions of these main questions that I ask here, in order to try to make things easier. But I'll not have the time to actually go deeper in them. But yes, Eliane.
Rodrigo, we can go a little bit further after. In 10 minutes, we would be
Yes.
doing 1 hour of live, having 1 hour of live. But look, we can go 1 hour and 10. It's up to you
Okay.
because I think it's this is the cherry of the cake. This final conclusions
Yes.
that you have. I know that they are great conclusions and very important for us to think about the consciousness, conscientiology, that is the science who studies consciousnesses.
Yes.
Okay, so you
Okay.
can go a bit further.
Okay. Thank you. So, the first question, the first fundamental question, I think it's easier to answer because from the out of body experience is very easy to answer it because consciousness is not the brain. The first sub question that I ask here is consciousness the brain? We conclude in conscientiology that no, it's not the brain because we can manifest ourselves beyond our physical body. So consciousness can be grasped from the physical or material world. No, also no. It's something material, objective, or extensive, which is we can measure consciousness or consciousness have x centimeters or x weight. We cannot measure consciousness. It's not something extensive. It's impossible to measure consciousness. Consciousness is not measured in a physical way. What I'm trying to say here, consciousness is subject to the linearity of time. Consciousness is subjective to this past, present, future, this chronology, or have other kinds of time that commands consciousness or that consciousness interacts itself. We know that consciousness have also other kinds of transits through time, not only from past to future, but consciousness can go to a deep past. We can have retrocognitions, we can have deja vus, we can access our all memory. So consciousness can go to the past, a very deep past. So consciousness is not only subject to this chronology from the past to the future, this line of time that goes from the past to the future. Consciousness can access a deep, deep past from its hollow memory. Yes, Eliane.
Rodrigo, I think this part is that you mentioned. Just, I think it's in my opinion, consciousness can access a deep past,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Not go to a deep past. It doesn't
No, no, not. But it
move
can,
properly,
yeah,
but
not move.
access
Yes,
to the
because
hollow memory, just to make
yes,
sure.
because yes, you said a key word, very important key word, because consciousness or the time that's subject to consciousness is not dependent to movement. It's something different because the this chronology is dependent of movement, and consciousness can travel through time without moving. This is what I'm saying. Do you understand this difference?
No, not so much because as far as we are not time travelers. Consciousness doesn't
Actually, we are, but without moving.
we
Uh,
without moving the consciousness,
moving
but
physically.
accessing all the memory.
Yes, but it's a kind of time travel. But
Because if we say that, if we say that, people might understand that the conscious has a consciential projection to the past. No, it has, it's different.
yes,
Just
yes, but
to make it clear
yes, yes,
for
perfect.
our viewers.
But
Okay.
we have to distinguish the kinds of time, because it cannot be understood only through the lens of chronology. Time cannot be understood only dependent from the movement. Time must be understood through other perspectives. I will give you an example, like synchronicity is not dependent of movement. It's something that happens simultaneously, and it's a different approach to understand time, and it's not dependent of movement.
Yes.
So consciousness is subject to other kinds of time, not only chronology, but other kinds of time. And
Okay, then it's
synchronicity is an example, but the access of hollow memory is also an example. Another example is the precognition, the know of the future, the knowing of the future. We can know the future. How come this happened? How could we explain precognition by chronology? It's impossible. We can
yes.
only explain precognition by understanding that time does not depend from the movement. So it's a different perspective of time that
Mm-hmm.
consciousness have a relation to that.
Okay, it's a different view of the time, different knowledge,
Yes,
very different from what we are used to take
yes.
measure time within seconds, minutes, and hours, and days and weeks.
To what our physical body is conditioned.
Yeah,
So our physical body is conditioned to believe that there is only or there only exists chronology.
yeah,
But when we discover the deep, more deep reality of consciousness, we know that there are other kinds of time,
okay,
synchronicity, the hollow memory, precognition. It, are some
very
examples of that.
okay. Okay, I understand now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So just to finish here, also consciousness cannot be perceived through the bodily sensory schemes, such as external perception, which are our five senses, our vision, our hearing, our taste, and so on. Interoperception, perception, proprioception, sorry, or electrification. It's something that Professor Valdo sometimes told us about that. The power of perception of electricity is some kind of perception also from our physical body. So, in this same sense, or in the same way, consciousness is not something psychological, or nor the mind itself. So consciousness is not the mind, is not a psycho-organic subject, is not something that arises from the mind, and it's not it's not the brain itself. It's something else. It's something transcendent, let's say. But even in this transcendence, which people say it's the mind because it's beyond the brain, consciousness is not that structure which is called mind. Neither it's not also something a mental object. Consciousness cannot be apprehended from the mental, subjective, or formal world. It's not also extensive, as I said, cannot be captured or apprehended by perception, imagination, memory, learning, awareness, understanding, reason. This is a more complex problem here, but consciousness cannot be apprehended by these means that I am saying here. And consciousness is not subject to the psychological time, which would be called chronemics. So consciousness is not only that. Consciousness is all of that, or is can be represented by all of that, but it's not that in itself. There is a really great difference between all these things that we are saying here, these representations of consciousness, but these are not consciousness in itself. So any of these approaches seem sufficient to define consciousness according to the conscientiological perspective, but specifically from a cosmo consciousness perspective, which is also conscientiological, which is also in the framework of conscientiological perspective, because it does not refer to the consciousness itself, but rather its attributes. They refer to other terms and concepts that lack appropriate definition, like intelligent principle, self, ego, I, you, I don't. We don't know actually what this means. And they approach consciousness for what it's not, and not for what it actually is. Obviously, as I said previously, this is a very strong line, because I think we have more potential through it. So we have some hypotheses from this. We can come up with some hypotheses from these conclusions, which consciousness is not something phenomenic, a phenomenal object. Consciousness cannot be observed, because the observer and the observed can never be the same thing. As I said before, as me and Eliane were talking before the presentation, I asked her, try to see your eye. Can you see your eye? Try to see your eye without a mirror, obviously, but try to see your eye. Can you see your eye? It's impossible, because you cannot be the observer and the observed at the same time. And there is no mirror to see the consciousness. What would be the mirror, the astrophysical mirror to see the consciousness? There's not. Yes, Eliane.
Yeah. We can see our eye if we put in a mirror, if we have a mirror. Okay.
Yes.
We can see the physical eye.
Yes.
We can. But I do agree when you say that the consciousness itself, we can't see it. We can't measure. We can't put in a test tube or take a picture of the consciousness, only the consciousness without the holosoma,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But when you say this number two, consciousness is not observable, because the observer and the observed can never be the same thing. But we as consciousness, we can observe ourselves through our manifestations, our thoughts,
Yes.
sentiments, energies, our production in life, what we do, what we think.
Yes. But we also came to the conclusion that we are not, that the consciousness and its manifestations is not the same thing.
Okay. So you
So
are you go back to the beginning, yeah.
yeah.
It's something to think about. Okay, I understand your point.
Yes.
Consciousness is not its manifestations. Okay.
No. It's something different.
Okay, let's go
Okay.
ahead. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So consciousness, in theory, cannot be apprehended nor conceptualized, because there is no form. If there's no form, we cannot intelligently or reasonably apprehend what consciousness is. There is this difficulty in our actual condition, considering mainly from our physical body condition. I think in a more advanced way, or in a more advanced condition, we could apprehend it. And the fourth conclusion is we can only be consciousness, but not perceive it. So a new category must be presented, and I'm trying to say that the category of singularities is the one that could try to explain what consciousness is. And what this category will say, that consciousness in the singularity category, which is not something new, I'm not inventing or coming up with this. This is something used in philosophy to explain something which, the essence of something. When we take out something without any of the relations, the structures that compounds that thing. We are only interested in the essence of that thing, in a philosophical manner to say, on the ontology of the thing, on what that thing is actually. So when we uh, put out or put aside all the things that connects, or all the structures that connects to that thing, when we put aside all that, what remains, what essence remains? This is what I am interested here to know. When we put aside everything that connects to consciousness, what remains? The consciousness in itself. So this category is the singularity category. This happens in philosophy, and I'm trying to bring to conscientiology to try to explain the conscientiological approach on consciousness. So consciousness is transcendent, but it's not transcendent in a metaphysical way like philosophy says, or rather it's extra-physical. We can apprehend the essence of consciousness from the extra-physical reality, not the physical, not the psychological, not the metaphysical reality, but from the extra-physical reality. Is a fourth a fourth reality that would come up here. Consciousness is not perceptible by the sensory scheme of the physical body, nor the transcendent faculties, which would be, as I said, memory, imagination, thought, lucidity, these things. Considering that consciousness has no form, nor structure, nor does establish relationships. If we can think about consciousness in this way, we could apprehend what consciousness is. So consciousness is that which remains after removed the physical and psychological aspects. Regarding time, so consciousness is not only subjected to the chronology or to the chronemics, the physical time from the past to the future, or the psychological time, our intern time. But with pure past, we have a consciousness that have a pure past. We have an infinite hollow memory, a pure present, because consciousness does not perishes in any sense. So it does not alters itself in any way. So it's always present. Something which is not always present have some alteration in some sense. And it's pure future also, because consciousness is subjected to a constant or an infinite future, let's say, has an infinite potential to manifest in the future. And to conclude, consciousness is not something extensive that can be measured, but something intensive, being much more associated with a force that animates and vitalizes bodies, which would be soma, psychosoma, parabrain, and so on, the memory, the hollow memory, and so on. So for this reason, consciousness would be the pre-individual form, or that which generates organic individuality and psychological subject. So the interesting thing about the conscientiological approach is the possibility to experiment in a closer way these singular aspects of consciousness, because conscientiology gives us the tools to experience the cosmic consciousness, which would bring us near to this reality. So just to end here, what's your conception of consciousness? Which categories do you consider to explain consciousness? And what personal experience do you consider fundamental to define consciousness? I think this third question would be the most important here. So the references, and thank you. If you have any question, you can send me to this email.
Okay. So we have a question here. So I'm going to ask Ana Marcia Yogan to send you through your email. Okay.
Okay.
So, Rodrigo, thank you very much for your participation. It was great to think about consciousness here today. It's deep reflections, great reflections. And we have to study more about it. And I hope we can discuss that, mainly the part related to time and chronology. That is something
Yes.
very philosophical, very different to what we are used to. Then it needs more reflections.
Yes.
And I would like to let everyone knows here, just a second, about our next lives. Okay. I will let you know that in the next December the 3rd, Sunday, we will have a webinar together with Pre-IC Isaac, and we will present a photo lecture about our itinerance in Europe. I'm not sure how it's going to be, but we will not have the consciousness in evolution lecture on the 3rd of December, because we will all be together with Isaac for this photo lecture. Then I invite you all to participate on December 3rd. I will let you know. I will send you links through the Isaac group, because it's going to be very interesting to know what we experienced there in Europe. And our next live of the Consciousness in Evolution will be on December 17 with instructor Antonio Pitaguari. And he's going to talk about self-conscientiality and self-awareness. That is something very much, I suppose, related to this webinar of today, because we talked about consciousness, and then we are going to talk about two very important attributes of the consciousness, that is self-conscientiality and self-awareness. So don't miss it. Okay. So once again, thanks everyone for your participation, and thank you very much, Rodrigo. Hope to see you soon with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye bye, everyone.